The parking lot was quiet, almost too quiet. A single fluorescent light flickered above rows of rusted shopping carts, casting long shadows across cracked asphalt that once bustled with small-town commerce. This wasn't just any parking lot. This was the graveyard of Hearne, Texas, a place where hope came to die, murdered by the yellow smiley face of corporate America. Walmart didn't just enter towns. It consumed them. Like a predatory organism, it moved methodically through rural landscapes, its massive stores casting economic death shadows over generations of local businesses. In Hearne, the destruction was so complete that locals would later say the retail giant killed the town twice, first economically, then spiritually. Sam Walton's dream wasn't just about selling products cheaply. It was a calculated strategy of market domination that transformed the American heartland. When the first Walmart arrived in Rogers, Arkansas in 1962, few could have predicted the tsunami of economic transformation that would follow. Small shops that had survived generations would now face an impossible competitor, armed with supply chain algorithms and pricing strategies that local mom-and-pop stores could never match. The numbers told a brutal story. Within 5 years of a Walmart's arrival, approximately 40% of local businesses would close. Main Street storefronts that had been community anchors for decades would become empty shells, their windows slowly collecting dust. Families that had run businesses for generations would watch their economic heritage crumble, replaced by minimum wage jobs and corporate efficiency. Hearne wasn't unique. It was a microcosm of a larger American transformation. Rural towns across Texas, Arkansas, and the entire southern United States became battlegrounds in Walmart's relentless expansion. Local economies weren't just disrupted, they were fundamentally re-engineered. Traditional economic ecosystems that had developed over centuries were bulldozed, quite literally, to make way for massive parking lots and warehouse-sized stores. The human cost was immeasurable. Community networks built over generations began to disintegrate. Local entrepreneurs who understood their community's specific needs were replaced by corporate decision-makers thousands of miles away. Personal relationships that defined small-town commerce were reduced to transactional interactions with minimum wage workers wearing blue vests. What happened in Hearne was more than an economic story. It was a profound social transformation, a harbinger of how global capitalism would reshape rural America in the late 20th century. Walmart wasn't just selling products, it was selling a new vision of community. One where efficiency trumped human connection, and low prices were the only measure of value. The story of Hearne was just beginning. And the parking lot, with its flickering light and abandoned shopping carts, would become a silent witness to an economic revolution that would reshape the American landscape forever. As Hearne's downtown began to wither, the local business owners watched with a mixture of anger and helplessness. Main Street, once a vibrant network of family-owned stores, now looked like a ghost town with boarded-up windows and faded-for-lease signs. The Walmart supercenter, gleaming and expansive just outside city limits, had become a gravitational force that sucked economic life from the town's core. Joe Martinez, who had run his family's hardware store for 3 generations, was among the first to feel the brutal economic squeeze. His inventory, carefully curated over decades, now sat untouched while customers drove past his shop to the massive Walmart parking lot. The big-box retailer offered tools at prices he could never match, selling items sometimes below his own wholesale cost. Martinez watched as his customer base evaporated, not gradually, but with shocking suddenness. The economic impact wasn't just about retail competition. Local supply chains began to collapse as smaller businesses lost their economic footing. Distributors who once served multiple small shops now found themselves negotiating exclusively with Walmart's massive procurement teams. Small manufacturers in surrounding counties discovered that either they would accept Walmart's ruthlessly low pricing or they would be effectively eliminated from the market. City council meetings became tense battlegrounds where community leaders debated the town's future. Some argued that Walmart represented inevitable progress, while others saw it as a predatory economic model designed to extract wealth from small communities. Property values started declining, and young professionals began leaving Hearne, seeking opportunities in larger cities where economic diversity still existed. The human cost became increasingly visible. Families who had been local business owners for generations now faced unemployment and economic uncertainty. The local bank, which had traditionally provided small business loans, saw its loan portfolio shrink as fewer local entrepreneurs could demonstrate sustainable business models. Walmart's economic model wasn't just changing retail, it was fundamentally restructuring rural community economics. By the mid-1990s, Hearne had transformed from a tight-knit community of interconnected local businesses to a satellite town orbiting the massive Walmart supercenter. The parking lot became more than just a place to shop. It was now the town's de facto public square, a stark concrete landscape that replaced the warm, personal interactions of the town's previous commercial centers. Every shopping cart represented not just a transaction, but a small piece of community identity being systematically dismantled. The story of Hearne wasn't unique. As Walmart's expansion accelerated through the 1980s and 1990s, small towns like Hearne became battlegrounds of economic transformation. Local business owners watched in horror as their carefully built enterprises began to crumble beneath the weight of corporate efficiency. The Walmart strategy was brutally simple: undercut local prices, draw customers away from established stores, and systematically eliminate competition through sheer economic pressure. The economic mathematics were ruthless and precise. A Walmart could slash prices by 20–30% compared to local retailers, creating an irresistible gravitational pull for budget-conscious consumers. Small grocery stores, hardware shops, and family-owned businesses found themselves trapped in an impossible scenario: either match Walmart's prices and go bankrupt, or maintain their traditional pricing and slowly bleed customers. The result was an economic bloodletting that transformed entire town ecosystems in less than a decade. Hearne's downtown became a haunting testament to this transformation. Where once vibrant storefronts had bustled with local commerce, now vacant buildings stood like economic tombstones. Local entrepreneurs who had invested decades of work into their businesses found themselves becoming obsolete, their life's work reduced to footnotes in Walmart's relentless expansion narrative. The human cost was profound and deeply personal. Families who had operated businesses for generations suddenly found themselves without livelihoods. The local economic network, built on personal relationships, trust, and generational knowledge, was being systematically dismantled by a corporate model that valued efficiency over community. Young people, seeing no economic future in their hometown, began migrating to larger cities, creating a demographic drain that further weakened the town's social fabric. Walmart's impact extended far beyond mere economic displacement. Local decision-making power shifted from community leaders to corporate strategists in distant headquarters. The intimate knowledge of local needs, once the domain of community merchants who understood their customers personally, was replaced by data-driven inventory management and national marketing strategies. The most insidious aspect of this transformation was its seeming inevitability. Residents of towns like Hearne didn't feel they were making a choice when they shopped at Walmart. They felt they were responding to economic necessity. Lower prices weren't just attractive. They were survival mechanisms for families struggling with stagnant wages and increasing living costs. By the late 1990s, Walmart had become more than a retailer. It was a symbol of a new economic paradigm. Small towns were no longer autonomous economic entities, but nodes in a vast interconnected corporate network. The promise of low prices came with a hidden cost: the gradual erosion of local identity, economic autonomy, and community resilience. Hearne's story was no longer unique. It had become a template for rural economic transformation across America. Each shopping trip to Walmart became a small act of economic pragmatism, even as it contributed to the broader dismantling of local economic ecosystems. As the dust settled on Hearne's economic landscape, the town became a microcosm of a broader national transformation. The Walmart effect wasn't just an economic phenomenon, it was a social earthquake that reshaped the very fabric of rural American life. Small businesses that had survived generations, family-owned hardware stores, local grocers, and community pharmacies, began to vanish like ghosts, their storefronts becoming empty monuments to a bygone era of local entrepreneurship. Families who had once owned thriving businesses found themselves working minimum-wage jobs inside the very store that had decimated their livelihoods. Generations of local economic knowledge, the intricate understanding of community needs, personal relationships with customers, and generational business wisdom were replaced by corporate algorithms and standardized inventory management. Local gathering spaces disappeared. The main street, once a vibrant hub of social interaction, became a corridor of abandoned buildings and faded dreams. The irony was brutal and complete. The very corporation that promised economic revitalization had instead created a mechanism of controlled economic destruction. Small towns like Hearne weren't just experiencing economic change, they were undergoing a form of corporate colonization. Every low price tag represented not just a bargain, but a piece of local economic sovereignty being quietly surrendered. The Walmart model wasn't about community development, it was about systematic economic consolidation. This was a national story of corporate power reshaping rural America, turning vibrant local ecosystems into standardized consumption zones. The town that Walmart killed wasn't just a metaphor, it was a warning. If you've been moved by this story of economic transformation, economic justice, and community resilience, make sure to like, subscribe, and hit that notification bell. Our next investigation goes even deeper into the hidden economic forces reshaping small-town America. A story you absolutely cannot afford to miss.